Hi, I'm Dawn, and this is where Shabby meets Bling. Even though spring is here and we are enjoying it, we have to keep in mind, especially if you design and decorate of the next season, and summer is coming very fast. So today I'm going to do something that's on the summery side, and it's going to involve stars and stripes and beautiful muted red, white, and blue colors. And my theme is along the lines of travel, because nothing says to me summer and America than traveling this beautiful country of ours. So let's get started.
Before we get started, I would like to thank Lisa from Our Gray House, Sarah from Jubilee DIY for hosting this First Friday Open Challenge. And I can't forget our guest host Charlene from Crafty Art Shack. Now let's get going with my Americana design. My project begins with some old corrugated yard signs that I came across, and I use these for a lot of things. So if you come across them, doesn't matter what they say, because you can sand them down and use them to make nearly anything. I'm measuring out my dimensions. I'm making a sign. I'm making a sign, and I need two pieces the exact same. I'm going to measure them out and cut them. My sign is going to be shaped like one of those old route signs, like Route 66. So I need to measure out and make a little grid so that when I draw out my larger version, it has the same proportions. I am using that grid and the dimensions and transferring it onto some brown paper and making my template. And now I need to clip it to and just trace it. And it is that simple. If you make the grid first, you're good to go. Now I need to cut out my actual sign. You can see I have two halves of a sign now. What I did was flip my original one over upside down and traced it to make the other half. Corrugated is actually made up of a series of tiny little channels, and I made sure my channels from both my halves of my sign were going in the same direction. This gave me the ability to use wire and glue to connect them. So I cut a series of small wires. They were about 3 to 4 inches long, and I ran them through the channels on either side and lined them up and then glued them together. And this is where you've got to be really careful. You can see I did mark where they're supposed to go, because if you don't get them in the right little channel, your sign is going to be way crooked. Once my two halves are joined, I am filling that crack in the center, that little seam, with caulk. Once it was totally dry, I came in and I filled it in again. I want this to be as flat as possible. And now quick sanding so that everything is smooth and my paint will actually adhere so that any of that glossy surface is totally gone. I am going to be putting some dimensional things and a light kit on this sign, so it needs to have some stability. So I am using some extra of the corrugated to make basically spines, multiple spines down the back, and I'm going to be attaching them with glue, just hot glue, and I'm also going to be adding wires, long wires, which I will glue through the spine and attach these in the exact same way that I initially attached my two halves of the sign. Now my sign's prepared, so let's paint. Here comes the first initial coat. And this is an Americana theme. So my red, white, and blue is muted. So my white being an antique white, or technically a beige. Now I'm using what's called backer rod, and it's basically an insulation. But I'm gonna use it for something totally different. I am splicing it, and I'm going to add it as a rim to my sign. I'm going to use some of my foam caulk to fill that little slit I created and run this thing all the way around the perimeter of my sign. And while it dries, I'm going to use the blue painter's tape the quick release to hold everything in place. I'm going to show you how I actually treated where both of my little Becker rod came together. I filled them with caulk, I overlapped them, and I cut them at the exact same time on an angle where they're going to meet. You could see that when you put them together now, they line up beautifully, and there's your finished edge. Once I have them cut, I add some more caulk, I mold and press everything in firmly, and then I will tape them to hold them in place so that they can dry overnight. This edge is kind of the making and breaking point of the sign. If you don't have a finished edge, it's gonna look shabby, and not in the good way, not in the shabby chic way. In the shabby, that looks like junk way, and we don't want that. This bowl and this plate are going to become part of my sign. So I have cut them in half, and now I'm gluing them together. I'm gluing the two halves together first because I need this to have some stability. And now I'm going to glue and clamp those two halves to that little half plate. I have laid out and measured where my light kit is going to be installed. And this is a DIY light kit that I'm making myself because they're extraordinarily expensive, and I'm going to be doing a video on that to show you how to make a really inexpensive one. That looks great. You can see that I've done a little bit of aging to the sign already, and now I am drilling the holes for that light kit. You were probably wondering if I was going to do a Route 66 sign. No, I am not. I am going to do a little gentle nod to my part of the country here in the Midwest. And Route 52 is one of those. And it is going to be the US Route 52 Cafe. That is what my sign is going to read. I have drawn out and hand cut my sticky stencil letters, and now I'm applying them. And I'll put the link in the description below for the video that I show you how to make these sticky stencils. And of course, no Americana sign is proper without stars and stripes. So now it's time to add those stars and stripes. And when you're working with stripes, you need to measure very carefully because, well, if they're cricket, they're not really stripes, are they? So measure and get them straight. It takes time, but it's worth it. As I mentioned, my sign is going to be more Americana, which means my colors are going to be more muted, they're going to be more rustic, a little bit of my shabby without the bling. So my colors are these. And this is my red. Or should I say claret wine, which is a beautiful color when it dries. It's dusky and deep and just this beautiful, beautiful red. And now my blue, which is a soft blue. It's actually called slate blue. I have pulled my sticky stencils and completed a rusting technique, one of many that I use. And as promised, I am going to be doing a video on that very process itself, and it will be on Wednesday, May 17th at 7 p.m. So I hope you join me. I just need to trim out the plastic out of the holes and add my light kit.
So I finished the last little fun details of my sign, but there's something else we need to do, and I'm going to be starting working on that right now.
Well, at a resale shop, I found this awesome vintage flagpole, and that is going to be the base, or should I say the structure my swag will be built upon. Now for what is going to go on that swag. I'm going to make some sweet little, very Americana medallions. And I am just tracing a lid onto some more of that plexi sign. For each medallion, I have 2 discs, and I cut them out and drill holes, 2 holes, into each and every one. And now I am going to use the little styrofoam discs that you can get anywhere, any store. I picked these up at the Dollar Tree, and because they're inexpensive. And I'm going to gently shape the sides and mold them down so they have a sloped edge. To cover my little discs, my little medallions, I am using old men's dress shirts in the colors of my paint. And I'm just cutting parts of it, and I'm going to cover my medallions. I add a wire pin through my styrofoam disc and then through one of the little plexi corrugated discs. Then I wrap it in my dress shirt, securing it all with hot glue. Now I'm adding some old sewing trim I've had for years and years, and I thought, hey, let's use some of the stuff up. And that way my little medallion will have more of a finished look to her. Behind each medallion, I'm adding a 7 looped bow with tails. This is some sewing fringe that I found on clearance at Hobby Lobby, and it was a little too red, so I'm just using some Rust-Oleum brown, straight up satin brown, to make her look a little old and more Americana.
Everything is totally complete and in place, and now I'd like to share it with all of you.
Here's our sign, and I did create an entire little vignette, and I wanted to show it to you in the daytime as well as night, but here it is in the day. There's my little cup. I added a handle, and I even potted her. That's why she needed to be sturdy. And the cup and the cafe letters have a kind of old metal look to them. And I'm really happy with the rusted technique. And check out the light kit. Looks even better at night. And there she is at night, all lit up. She looks old, weathered, and yet oddly well taken care of. Here you have a really good look at the medallions and the actual swag I created on that old flagpole. If you noticed, those men's dress shirts didn't go to waste. I created a bunting style runner, 3 layers out of the tails, and I also added some in my swag. It is a cafe, so I added a little tiny handle to my rusty pots to make a little coffee cup. And I'd like to thank Lisa from Our Gray House and Sarah from Jubilee DIY for hosting this First Friday Open Challenge. And I won't forget you, Charlene, for being our guest host at Crafty Art Shack. The playlist is in the link below. Please watch the entire thing. You'll be glad you did. And the links to these lovely ladies' channels will be there as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, give it that thumbs up. Share it with your family and friends and anyone that's interested in design and decor. I hope you support the channel by subscribing and hit that bell so you get notifications of all my upcoming videos. And for now, this is Dawn with Shabby Meets Bling. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you next time.